This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Alpena City Council meeting of October 5th, 2020. Call the order, please.
Councilman Hess? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Here.
Councilman Mitchell?
Here.
Councilman Noah?
Here.
And Mayor Walagora?
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening. We have to approve it first.
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
Councilwoman Hess?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Noah?
Yes.
And Mayor Walagora?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Any modifications to the agenda this evening?
I would like to add an item to the agenda and have the city attorney talk to the public about what happens now that the executive order has gone away or will go away.
Okay, let's put that under, where do you want to be, Bill? Report
Probably
of
on the report
officers?
of officers.
All right. We'll put that as a second, so that would be like the. All right, any other modifications, suggestions? I'll call the order when you're ready, Hannah.
Do we have a second?
Oh, sorry, a second.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Noah?
Yes.
Mayor Walagora?
Aye.
And Councilwoman Hess?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, approval of the minutes, regular session of September 21st, 2020. Any issues, changes? Citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address your concerns. It's the only time during the council meeting you're allowed to address the council. It seems that there was no one here live to address us. Anything, Steve, from the virtual world?
Nothing to chat.
Nothing there. Move on, no public hearing tonight, so we have a consent agenda. A is bills to be allowed in the amount of $108,909.20. B is a grant agreement with the state of Michigan for 50% cost share for a new tabulator. And C is amend the September 8th, 2020 council minutes to correct the term of the DPW contract. And by term, that was the year, the amount of years.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Councilman Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Noah?
Yes.
Mayor Walagora?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hess?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We're down to announcements. The only announcement tonight is that Halloween trick or treat hours in the city of Alpena are from 5:30 until 7:30 p.m. on Saturday, October 31st, 2020.
Just keep that the same as last year.
Same as last year. No proclamations. Report of officers. First is the costs and voter turnout of the August 4th, 2020 election. Anna?
Okay, so the cost for the August 4th primary election totaled $12,275. About half of the total cost was to compensate the election workers. And for that election, we did not get any reimbursement from the state of Michigan. And that will pretty much be the same for the general election. The only thing that I know of that we're going to get reimbursed for is the postage that we put on the return envelope. So the green envelope coming back to us, we put postage on it because the state's going to reimburse us. Normally we don't do that. I know other clerks are not doing it because they don't want their voters to expect it every time, but we'll just kind of see how this goes. The city had 8,418 registered voters at the time of the election, which is an increase of 72 voters since the March election. The voter turnout was 36.5%, which equals 3,076 votes cast. Of that total, 1,519 votes, or 49%, were absentee ballots. Of the 3,076 voters, 1,767 were aged 60 and older. Then it dropped significantly. 442 were aged 51 to 59. 338 were aged 41 to 50. 303 were aged 31 to 40. 175 were aged 22 to 30, and 51 were aged 18 to 21. And I find it very interesting how the turnout increases as the age of the voter increases. It was right in order. The largest group of voters, once again, was women, women age 60 and older, and it was exactly 1,000, or 32.5%. So if you're following along, that would mean that 767 voters age 60 and older were males. At the time of this memo being written, we have already issued 2,134 absentee ballots, which is about 25% of our total registered voters. I actually just ran the numbers before I came up here, and we've issued 2,266. And I think we have over 8,500 registered voters now, so we're about 27%. Absentee ballots. That is all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
No, that was a very thorough report, very interesting. Interesting. Really appreciate the facts.
Maybe next time I'll have bar charts and all.
Yeah. I wouldn't put that past you. Thank you, Anna. Let's receive the file on that. I move we receive the file.
Second.
Councilman Noah,
Yes.
Mayor Walagora.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hess,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Yes.
and Councilman Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Anna. Next up is Bill Piper's presentation on what the current effect of the governor's orders are.
Okay. I'll be.
Are they able to hear him from where he's sitting? Okay, it's picking up, sorry.
I'll be as thorough as I can, but not overly thorough, and to try not to bore too many people. But I think most people have heard that the Michigan Supreme Court last Friday made a ruling on the executive orders that Governor Whitmer has issued throughout the last 5 to 6 months. And without getting into their opinion too much, which was pretty lengthy, they ultimately concluded that although there may be valid reasons from a public health standpoint for entering the orders, and although Governor Whitmer may have acted in good faith, the question was whether they're constitutional. And so good faith and public safety and constitutionality don't always cross paths. So what they ultimately said was that those orders are not effective. The interesting thing about the case is it's not a case that normally wound its way through the Michigan court system. There were a couple of federal lawsuits, and those one of the federal judges asked the Michigan Supreme Court to make a ruling under Michigan state law whether the governor had the authority to do what she was doing. And it appears that they agree that the governor did have initial authority to do that, didn't declare a state of emergency, but that after 28 days, she needed to at least have the concurrence of the legislature on whatever got extended. So as of last Friday, the Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional. Now, the thing that's a little odd about it is, well, what does that mean in light of the fact that it was not a case that wound its way through the Michigan court? So is it an advisory opinion or is it binding? To that extent, there was a press release from Governor Whitmer's office today that her and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, through their director, Robert Gordon, filed a motion requesting that the Michigan Supreme Court clarify that that October 2nd ruling does not take effect until Friday, October 30th. So they're asking the Supreme Court to leave that order in effect until at least October 30th. I would guess that the Supreme Court would probably move quickly on it because it is an issue of public interest. And a lot of folks all across the state are trying to figure out what this means right now. So hopefully they will clarify sooner rather than later And when I say sooner, I mean, hopefully in the next couple of days, they clarify whether that order is effective and when its expiration date might be. But with that being said, other units of government, including state agencies, have started taking action. And the two that took action over the weekend were Oakland County and Ingham County. And their health directors in each of those counties, or health officers, issued executive orders that basically put the mask mandate in place for those counties under varying conditions. And conditions would be too voluminous to repeat, but the main ones are that you're not to leave your home without a mask, and that certainly when you're inside, you have to have a mask on. When you're outside, you don't need to have a mask on, but you are still recommended that you appropriately socially distance. And then there are certain outside activities that, because of the proximity that you may have to other individuals, would still require you to wear a mask. So the most common thing that right now that would come to mind would be an athletic event. If you're sitting in the stands at an athletic event, they still want you to wear a mask. So how quick that's going to happen in terms of that ruling, I'm not sure, but part of Governor Whitmer's request was that there should be some transition period, and I'm reading directly from the press release. And it says, we need this transition period to protect the 830,000 Michigan workers and families who are depending on unemployment benefits to pay their bills and to put food on the table, and to protect Michiganders everywhere who are counting on their leaders to protect them. And although the Supreme Court has spoken, she vehemently disagrees with their ruling. She is ready to work across the aisle with the Republicans in the legislature, where we can find common ground to slow the spread of the virus and rebuild our economy. It's time for Republicans in the legislature to get to work and start showing that they are taking this crisis seriously. They can start by canceling their October recess and getting back to work. Let's work together and get this done. I don't know if the Michigan legislature has reconvened. If it tends to reconvene, they are in recess right now, but she's obviously strongly requesting that they come back and start working on this immediately. The Department of Health and Human Services Director, Robert Gordon, issued his own order today. That's quite voluminous as well. That's issued under the Public Health Act. And once again, it's got certain requirements in terms of masks and outdoor gatherings, indoor gatherings. There are some exceptions to it. But mainly, I don't want to say these are exactly the same as Governor Whitmer's executive orders, but they're pretty close. And they're probably the same in certain areas. So the Department of Health and Human Services on their own, and I think they've got legal authority, or at least they've got legal authority until somebody tells them they don't. Being under the Public Health Code, they have the authority to gather or to prohibit certain gatherings and require that certain public safety measures be put into place. So things are moving quickly right now. I would guess that more subunits of government and more municipalities and or counties are going to start, enacting their own orders. The city of Alpena charter actually called for a public health officer many years ago, but that public health officer position had been eliminated many years ago, and ultimately the charter was amended, and that particular officer was, no longer in existence. So we don't have a public health officer for the city. We did at one time, quite a long time ago. So I don't know if the city would have independent authority. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. We'll say things are moving quickly, but I don't know if the city has its own independent authority right now to enact whatever orders it felt was appropriate. The county would be able to do so. Obviously, a couple counties have already done so. So there's certainly authority for the county, and there's certainly statewide authority for the Department of Health and Human Services in light of Director Gordon's order that he's put into effect. So that's kind of the status as of right this moment, but how quickly that can into, it could be as quickly as tomorrow if the Supreme Court hears that motion on an emergency basis and says those orders are still effective until October 30th is what the request of the governor.
Very good. Thank you, Bill.
Sir, if I may also add, the Attorney General's office has indicated that they will not be pursuing criminal matters on these violations. And that came from her
Yeah,
own AG. So,
correct, yeah, I read that, thank you, Joel. Yeah, and how that pans out is gonna be interesting.
yes, sir.
What would that have to do with the EOs from the county? And what enforcement do they have?
That's a good question. I don't know that I could answer that for you. I mean, I'm assuming there'll be some litigation regarding that. I would guess that somebody in Oakland County is probably going to challenge that order. Somebody in Erie County will probably challenge it. But until the court decides those orders are effective, until they're ruled otherwise, so.
Can they be declared unconstitutional by the county health departments? What I'm getting at is that they're not elected officials. And so it's again a situation of no representation for legalization or the legislation that they're passing the EOs. Okay, so there's no representation. They have no redress to it for right now that I understand. So the question is, they could be sued as well, could they not?
Absolutely. I would suspect they're going to be.
Under the unconstitutionality of it, because there's no
Yeah,
representation.
because if, let's assume the Supreme Court says tomorrow, no, that we're not delaying the effectiveness of this order, it's effective right now. And so the governor's order no longer stand. Because Oakland County and Newton County have already done their own orders, I would guess somebody's probably gonna jump in there and sue one of those counties and ask for some emergency relief in light of the Supreme Court's ruling. And if they turn down her request to make, to clarify that it's effective until October 30th, they'll throw everything back into disarray now. When I first saw this was just my thought as an attorney. Obviously I have no idea what the governor's office would do, but there is a procedure for a motion for rehearing in the Supreme Court, and you have to file that within 21 days. My initial thought was that the governor's probably going to file something on the 20th or 21st day and ask for a stay that would, move it out until probably after the election. But as of right now, the governor hasn't done that, but has filed this emergency motion asking to at least have the Supreme Court say it's effective until October 30th.
All right, thanks, Bill. I don't want to go on too long on what we don't know, but I really appreciate the update on that. Next, we're down to new business. This is the Planning Commission term expirations. You're taking the lead on that as well, I
I
believe?
am, but there was a memo in the packet, and it's essentially what has occurred, and I'm not sure that we were able to trace how far back this goes, but the Michigan Planning Enabling Act allows the city obviously to have its own planning commission, which we have. And it can be a 5, 7, or 9-member board. Ours is a 9-member board. And what the enabling statute says, and what our ordinance actually says, is that under the enabling act, it said that, you would stagger the initial terms to try to have, the same number of people come up. Or if you have a 5 and 7, that's not as easy as a 9. On a 9, you have 3 for a 3-year term, 3 for a 2-year term, 3 for a 1-year term. It didn't appear that it ever got set up that way initially. So what's occurred is a couple of things. First of all, there's one vacancy right now, and I think there's some concern about filling spots on the planning commission. But Paul Saban, I think, had spoke to Rachel a while back and said, hey, is there any way we can kind of, stagger these terms so that we don't have so many people coming up in the same year? So where we're at right now is, I think there are 6 spots that would be, appointments would be effective November 1st. So attached to the memo is the current expiration date for the members that are currently on, and then a proposed expiration date. So what we're proposing is that 3 of the members have a expiration date of 11/1 of 2021. 3 of them will be on 11/1 of 2022, and 3 of them on 11/1/2023. So we're resetting some of the seats and the length of a couple of the members that are on there right now. And my understanding was that Mr. Saban is okay with this.
Yes.
And in fact, I think suggested it. So what we would need if the council concurs is just a motion that essentially resets those terms consistent with the attachment that's labeled PC 2020 in the left-hand, upper left-hand corner of that document.
And so no one's, just to be clear for anyone that didn't scour the chart, no one's term is going to be shortened from when they expected it to be. So we won't be telling any members that their term is expiring sooner than they expected. There's just a couple that are, there's just a few that are extended. And
Yeah,
my
what would be
perception,
happening primarily to Mr. Van Wagner and Ms. Kirchner, and then also Councilmember Mitchell's vacancy. Those, Mr. Van Wagner and Mr. Kirchner are going to be reappointed effective 10/1 of this year, but they're only going to have a 1-year term. So then.
oh, I see.
Yeah, so next
Okay.
year, assuming they want to stay on, then they'll have a new 3-year term after that.
Okay,
So a couple of them are getting shortened, but not, nobody's having anything taken away currently.
right. They'll just be appointed. This year, they'll be appointed for a shorter term than they would have normally.
Yes. Yeah.
And they probably understand that. I'm sure he probably passed this through.
Mr. Saban had suggested these terms.
Right, but he let all the rest of his commission know or where
So, yes.
they're about to be.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, and I had sent this memo on to him and let him know
Okay.
that this was coming up, so he could let everyone know.
Okay, and the majority of these individuals are longtime planning commissioners as well. So, anybody have any other questions or opposition to that, or if not, then
No,
need a motion?
no, I appreciate every one of these members serving here, and I think this makes more sense than what we currently have. So
Yeah.
we're not short on members and losing a bunch of members at once. So we all know it's very hard to get volunteers for different committees and things. My question is this able to do this all in like one motion as presented, Bill, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I move we approve the planning commission PC, I think you said PC 2020.
Yeah, the PC 2020, which essentially will reset the terms of the commissioners consistent with that chart.
As presented.
Support.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
Mayor Walagora?
Aye.
Councilwoman Huss?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell?
Yes.
And Councilman Noah?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move we adjourn to closed session just to discuss collective bargaining agreement and an update regarding the proposed litigation with Alpena public top fire.
Second.
I just like beating. Councilwoman Huss?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Noah?
Yes.
And Mayor Walagora?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, and just a note to the virtual world, we do not expect, nor is it on our agenda to take any action after the closed session. That may or may not be lengthy, but if you'd like to stick with us, we'll come back on and adjourn. It's pretty much all we're going to do when we come back. So, thank you.